Our security is very, very sloppy. And it's not because the systems aren't there, it's because we don't use them. People aren't security aware.
CBS News has learned the two airlines involved in yesterday's terrorist attack have been repeatedly cited for security violations. In the last 6 months of 2000, American Airlines was fined more than $400,000 for 49 incidents. United Airlines was fined $356,000 for 38 incidents. Delta was even worse, more than $600,000. In July, the FAA proposed fining American an additional $99,000 for security violations at several airports, including Boston's Logan Airport, where two of yesterday's doomed flights originated. After a series of security breaches at Los Angeles International Airport, a reporter from KCBS TV went undercover in 1999.
Is security so loose that it's possible for a terrorist to get a weapon on an airplane? We found out it's not only possible, in some cases, it's easy.
Security staff failed to properly check passengers. A producer posing as a traveler in a wheelchair was pushed around metal detectors and not adequately inspected.
When a security checker misses an encapsulated pistol or some other test, you fire them. You don't retrain them. This is security. It's my life and yours.
The agency charged with spearheading airport security and safeguarding the skies, the Federal Aviation Administration. Now, after the most devastating terrorist attack in U.S. history, the FAA, often criticized for lax enforcement and bureaucratic bungling, is itself under siege.
The FAA has blood on its hands because it's not doing its job and hasn't been.
Michael Boyd is an independent aviation consultant with commercial airlines among his clients.
We have a major security problem, obviously, and the FAA is in the middle of it. We've known this for years. I've said it for years, that to a trained terrorist, our airports look like a laundromat. You can get in and get out.
Along with each commercial airline disaster have come new revelations of serious failures by the FAA. Perhaps none more frightening than the multitude of security lapses. 1988, Lockerbie, Scotland. A terrorist bomb blows Pan Am Flight 103 out of the sky. The aftermath brought both recriminations and recommendations. Our government assured us airport security would be beefed up. Additional security personnel were hired, metal detectors, X-ray machines, and most recently, bomb detection technology. All were deployed to combat the threat of terrorism. But time and time again, in the 12 years since Lockerbie, gaping holes in security have been exposed. Holes the FAA pledged to fix. Holes that government reports warned still remained. Holes that were likely exploited by these terrorists today. There appears to have been a total breakdown at least 3 airports in this country. Give us the scenario of what might have happened.
Well, there are 2 plausible scenarios. Either someone was able to get through the security side at those airports, or maybe even more likely, people working on the ground crews had been compromised.
How easy is it, and tell us the plain truth, to get a gun or a bomb on an airplane?
There are always some airports that fail when we try to get a gun or a knife on an aircraft.
How easy is it to get a job as a security screener?
It is as easy as falling off the proverbial turnip truck to get a job as a security screener. We have people that would be flipping hamburgers if they weren't working in the security function. They're not very well skilled, there's very high turnover, and I'm not sure that they're up to the job.
But inadequate screening of passengers and baggage is not the only threat to security.
We don't screen the people who work at airports properly. At tests that have been done at airports around the United States, we found a large percentage of, or certainly a large number of illegal immigrants, people whose background that we really couldn't check out.
In fact, as Dateline reported in 1996, our producers applied for and were given jobs at 2 of the biggest airports in the country. At Newark Airport in New Jersey, where one of the hijacked planes departed this morning, our undercover producer was hired on the spot, no questions asked, and no job references checked to drive this electric car. But within 2 days, he was working security checking carry-on bags. He was given no training. And watch how our undercover producer wanders along tarmacs and throughout airplanes without the ID to be there. And he passes some 10 other airport employees without being stopped. At Hartsfield Airport in Atlanta, our producer was hired as a baggage handler without the required background check. Again, he was free to roam on airliners like this one. After Dateline's broadcast, the FAA did change policy to try to prevent these types of security breaches, but recent government reports indicate problems persist.
Obviously, from the news reports we've collected about JFK and LaGuardia Airport on the evening of September 13th, would imply even greater security vulnerabilities than these two recent news pieces elaborated on, as the method of operation with hijacking some of the 9/11 flights, where it may have been circumstances that hijackers posed as pilots and flight crew themselves, rather than them just receiving help from the passenger security screeners or airport employees stationary on the ground, boarding the flights as passengers. But again with Atlanta as a possible target, on September 24, 2001, under a CNN headline, Box cutters found on other September 11th flights, regarding the FBI pursuing tips and potential leads on the criminal dragnet investigation, it states that a knowledgeable source said 2 small knives were found on a Delta flight that was supposed to depart Boston, and a box cutter was found on an Atlanta to Brussels Delta flight. These planes didn't take off since all flights were grounded after the hijackings. The tools were found when the planes were searched. Now, as far as Atlanta's Hartsfield Airport goes, and all the reports already coming in from September 14th and onward about Atlanta being a target, it would seem that either both the airport or any major landmark or financial institution in Atlanta was a threat there also, whether it was going to be a direct target coming from Hartsfield. But as mentioned with the newspaper report, Hartsfield, Atlanta is not only the second busiest airport on the East Coast, it's also where Delta Airlines flights are more prominent to any other U.S. carriers due to Delta's corporate offices being stationed in Atlanta. But if we go back and try to figure out the incident with Delta Flight 1069 at Boston Logan from September 15th, a day after it reopened, according to 9/11 documents released on the government archive site, Crisis hijacked aircraft W9005-5 miscellaneous, that's mostly redacted, seems to show charted news and emergency reports on 9/11 and the following days up until September 16th. And on Saturday, September 15th, it says, at 10:18 a.m., Boston questionable passenger on Delta 1069, paid ticket with cash, moved to several different seats, suspect removed from aircraft, luggage removed also, suspect cleared by Mass SP, which likely stands for Massport. And it also says at 11:40 a.m., Boston TWA 192 on the ground with questionable suspect on board, aircraft met with Massport and FBI. But on page 21, looking into the sections of the official 9/11 flights, it states a Delta flight with no number or name, only that it was departing Boston to LAX. 1239 reports that a Middle Eastern woman and baby would be aboard the flight with a bomb on their person. Reports received info from an ATCT via LAX PD, which would mean police department. Notified of non-specific bomb threat at 2147 local time, which would mean 9:47 p.m. Besides that, this document also charts reported activity relating to Flight 23 at JFK Airport, detailing that the 3 suspects had fled, as well as the other reports 2 days after at JFK and LaGuardia. But going back again referring to Delta flights at Boston Logan, there is also a much more popular case that's been overlooked but on 9/11, which is also detailed in the document categorically.